There's the pig squeal I promised.
That was
ZLS.
That was pretty special.
Yeah, thanks. Jeff Cross made that song for me, and I did the video.
It's top notch.
Thank you.
The production value.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. ZLS 060. We've got Brian Love in the studio. Brian, how are you doing, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Even better now that you're here. And
I feel like we've got to hang out a bit today.
I know, it's super cool. It's a treat for me because as I was telling you before we started, I always checked out your articles about Angular stuff when I was just getting started, sort of in Angular and in the front end world. And yeah, now we get to do 2 shows in one day.
Yeah, that was fun this morning.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. I love reactive stuff, so
yeah.
RxJS is my jam. But yeah, you're here today, and one of the things we're looking at, taking a look at, is lookout.dev. Let me throw it in the comments here so people can check it out. And let me share my screen. Let's see. Go. Get that out of the way. So I'm looking at lookout.dev.
Cool.
What we got here, Brian?
So the backstory on this is kind of cool. So I've been a blogger for, I don't know, 8-10 years or something now. And I've always really enjoyed it. And there's this, I tend to be kind of a long form writer, pretty in-depth articles, if you will. And so I was actually recently, 2 things, reading an article, a paper by Sean. You may better know him as like Swix, who's kind of a leader in the JavaScript community.
Yes.
And he's got this concept called learning in public that he kind of is an evangelist for, if you will. And so he wrote a paper, I think it was around the beginning of this year. And then he also spoke, and then Joel Hooks, who is, I think, one of the co-founders or the founder of egghead.io, I'm not sure, but he spoke at a conference called Cascadia.js. And so actually a coworker of yours, Nicole Oliver, and I were on the new speaker organizer committee. So I got asked to help kind of mentor and like work with new speakers as they were getting started, speaking for the first time for Cascadia.js, which is, I think, traditionally located in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm in Portland, and they've had in-person pre-COVID events like here in Oregon, as well as up in like the Seattle, Washington area. And so I was thrilled to get asked to help, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. But then I actually attended the conference, and I was, kind of helping with the conference, and I got to listen to this talk by Joel Hooks, where he kind of just like the light bulb went off for me. He was talking about this concept of learning in public, right, and the value of it, and how if we learn something, and a lot of people talk about this, right? If you learn something, share it, teach it, write about it, do what you're doing, stream, do a video, do an online course, do, whatever. There's like a million different ways, I think, to learn in public. But even with all the tools that we have out there and like easy static site generators like Jekyll or Eleventy or whatever, I thought, like, what if it was, what if we could have a site where you can make it real easy for people to learn in public, right? And so you basically sign in and you can create like, I think I started calling it like a best practice. So this, this is a side project. So, but I hope it kind of gets a little love. But the idea is, let's make it real easy to, like, say I learned something. So like if you click on like that use one-time code value of autocomplete, like the second one down. Yesterday I was on Twitter, and somebody did like one of these things about like, oh, you can do this one-time code attribute, for the autocomplete attribute. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So that way when you get like a text message for like a multi-factor authentication, you could just like, boom, fill in, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even know this was a thing. I was like, this is really neat. What if I just learned this? What if I just quickly write about it? And so the idea is to make it super simple, and it's not meant to be a blog. It's just meant to be like, here's something that I've learned. Here's a piece of knowledge. Here's a best practice. And then I've tried to structure it for you. So there's instructions, which are things like do this, avoid this, consider this, and why, like why you might do it, or consider, kind of this kind of easy kind of way to just say, hey, this is why you might do this, or whatever. And then, then you also have code examples. And the idea is like, let's show like, kind of almost like if you've seen in some like style guides, they'll show you like, don't do this and do this, right? So that way it really helps for you to learn. And so you just quickly come in, you punch like add a code example. You could choose whether it's like avoid or do, and then you pop in the code, and it's all, it's formatted for you. It's all SEO friendly. You can link to it. And then if you go to like if you go and click on the link down below, Meet Brian, this is where what Sean and Joel are talking about, which I think is just so powerful and so cool, is this idea of having a digital garden, right? So it's like, think about a garden. Like my mom, I grew up and we had a garden for years. You cultivate, right? You plant seeds, you grow, you cultivate, and it gets, in fact, better and better, as you like work on your garden, as you toil, like as the soil, and you make it better. And so the idea is like you're building this digital garden of things that you've learned. Right. It's not meant to be like, look at me, how great I am, or look how many, +1s I get, or how many stars, or it's not about that. It's about just learning in public and building up this idea of a digital garden. So,
well, having those like pieces of feedback as like useful metrics for some things, like this one might not be ready yet, or maybe this one needs a little bit more love, but then you can see, okay, like this one's getting kind of mature. Maybe I can do a video on it, or maybe I can make some other bigger content off of that. That's something I've been trying to get better at myself too. It's just like taking some topic and getting more value out of it. Like I feel like I know a lot of ArcsJS stuff. I'd love to get some more content out there about that. So I don't know. It was really cool. When we had Sam Julien on the show too, he mentioned the same concept, the garden. So
I think it's a really neat idea. And so I thought, well, what if there was an easy way to do it? And so that's what I started building. So and so I think if you go to it right now, it's mostly just me. I think I got one other person who submitted something.
Who's T.O.? Tom Eustace. Shout out to Tom. Senior
Tom.
Old.
I like that. So I mean, the other kind of concept, the way I've talked about this too with a couple of my friends and stuff, is like, I love Stack Overflow, right? Like Stack Overflow is a huge repository of knowledge, Q&A, if you will. Another way to kind of think about this is like flipping upside down Stack Overflow. So instead of posting a question and getting answers, you're basically posting an answer. You're saying, here's what I learned, or here's the best way to do this, or here's a way to solve this technical challenge. And so you're sharing what you've learned or what you've figured out. And of course, there's opportunity for people to comment, or to, kind of maybe, provide some feedback, like you said, because, that's part of learning in public, is being open, I think, to getting better and improving. So
for sure. I definitely feel like, so I had some live streams before I like really started zeroing in on like doing guest episodes, where I was just picking up something and trying to learn it on stream. And that was super intimidating.
It is intimidating. It's like, people are going to judge you. They're like, wait, you're a senior engineer and you don't know how to center content in a div or whatever. You're like,
I gotta Google it.
Shit.
Well, it's, I feel like, whenever I'd live stream too, it felt like I was using, I was only getting like half of my brain at it, because like half of your brain is concentrating on teaching and like running the stream and checking for comments and all that stuff. And the other half was like, okay, like trying to focus as I normally would. So, I mean, it gave me some skills actually, like writing. I think what I would do a lot of the time. Oh, and we got some praise for the lookout.dev. Thank you, Jacob. Thanks for coming by. Man. But so I would have like a markdown file that I'd like adjust and say, like, sort of like a checklist, and say, okay, this is what we're going to try to do today. see if we can knock this one off, this one off, this one off. And then it would just kind of, it would give me something to kind of go back to. Like, what am I working on again? Okay, let's make sure we're focused on this task. And that's something I took to just like my normal work as well. It's something I needed to do better at, because I'll go, I'll be like, that's not right. And that's not right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Something to anchor me, maybe. So.
Yeah, I love the idea of this, of just, you know, learning in public, whether that, and I think there's great avenues to do it. And, you know, Twitch is a great avenue to do it. This is more the written. I mean, right now you can't do any videos or anything. It's, you know, yeah. And, you know, obviously it's free. You just sign up and start creating some content. You know, I've got some code of conduct. Obviously, you don't want to be putting stuff out there that's, you know, any sort of offensive language and all of that. So yeah,
for sure. Do you have anything for like Stack Blitz support? That's one of my favorite tools for sharing a piece with some people. So.
Not yet, but I like the idea.
Nice.
Not yet. Right now, you know, it's just, I'm using like simple MDE or whatever it is. It's just a simple editor. You just punch in the code. And then the formatting all happens both server side as well as client side. So it's actually, in a little bit of a, you know, kind of technical sense. You know, I know React. I've done a little bit of Vue, but certainly being, you know, an Angular developer by trade, you know, I wrote it in Angular. So this is an Angular Firebase, you know, server side rendered application. So
I was expecting it, so I was like, yes, he's using Firebase. I like that.
Yep. So it's Firebase with, you know, Firestore for the back end authentication, Firebase functions to do a bunch of stuff in terms of just kind of, you know, some hooks into Firestore as well as authentication. So yeah.
Very cool. Addy, thanks for stopping by, man. Nice to see you coming through again. We just had Addy on yesterday, Brian. So he's
nice.
This is how I build it my base.
Your followers.
Yeah, I get them to come on the show, and then I trick them into coming by again later.
There you go.
So there you go. But yeah, man. Before we go on to the next thing, Firebase Auth. I love Firebase Auth. I feel like it's so simple compared to like the other things I've seen out there. So
yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to any sort of identity solution, I think Chris Seveleja, I might be mispronouncing his last name, I apologize, but Chris on Code from Scotch.io. I think like he tweeted the other day, like 6 things or whatever, like you shouldn't do if you're building a SaaS product. And like, don't go and write your own authentication.
Yes,
okay? Like
that's like number 1.
2020. I know it's like the worst year ever, but don't make it worse and start writing your own authentication code. Yeah. And so, you know, there's a ton of great products out there. I know a lot of people that use, and I've used Auth0 in projects, but I wanted to go with Firebase. Partly, I just wanted to learn it, honestly. And I wanted to go with Firebase. And so if you're doing Firebase, it just makes sense to use Firebase Auth, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the integration there is really neat too. Just how like the identity rules come right into the like to the whole suite integration. It's cool. So
yeah, and certainly like security rules around like Firestore in terms of auth and all of that stuff just makes sense. Yeah. Super cool. Plus, they just came out. I don't know if you watched. Firebase Summit was this week, and they just came out with I've been using the local emulators, which are so much better than trying to like have a staging and a prod and
that was one of my biggest things with it. I haven't messed with Firebase since they got the emulator stuff.
The emulators are really nice. They were like so close to great because they didn't have the auth emulator until this week. I haven't had a chance yet to play with it because like I was running into a bug where like I'm doing a sign up against prod that's doing a Firebase function to my prod Firebase, but then my local Firestore didn't have the document, and then I get an error, and then it's like, ugh. So now it's really nice. I mean, you get the whole like emulator suite. It's all, I think it's just a Java app, you know, pretty easy to get started with. You install it, and then you literally have like a local authentication, local real-time database, local Firestore,
that's awesome.
hosting. Yeah.
Is that something you could spin up for like an end-to-end test too? That's one of
exactly that's the other thing that you use it for.
Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So you can use it in your CI pipeline in order to do tests to hit basically, and you can seed Firestore in like you can see the database, you know, off the initial, like when you start the emulator. And then from there, you can just kind of run all of your end-to-end tests with whatever.
That sounds so nice. Me and my brother has a dog watching business that he actually does really well at, but he has a website for it, and we were working together on this. And like one of the things we set up an end-to-end test for making sure like the login experience is working and stuff like that. And I was using like the Firebase admin API inside of my Cypress tests to clear out people as soon as we created them. So that was a great
I see. Yeah. Yeah, with this, like any changes you make to the data is just gone as soon as you stop the emulator. It's just poof, you know.
Does it take like snapshots of the database too, or how does that work?
It's a little actually. I think honestly the story could be improved there, and I know that I'm sure they're aware of it. But getting data into the emulator is a bit of a pain in the butt. You actually have to like run a Google Cloud function, or like you have to run like a Google Cloud function or something. That's what it is. You run like a terminal command to export your data into a storage bucket in GCP. And then there's all these like binary files that it keeps the data in. It's not even like JSON, right? And then you got to like bring these binary files over and like copy paste them in the exact location. And then like use that to like load the data into the emulator. It's not great.
That's some lifting, man. That's some lifting.
It's a pain, honestly. And so, yeah, I think one day there'll be like a sync button or something, you know what I mean? Where you could just pull in data right from your staging or something into the emulator and persist it or whatever. But I'm sure that, I know that they've got to realize that like doing an export to a storage bucket and copying binary files from the storage bucket into your local directory is not fun. So
well, I've got a lot of confidence in that team.
I'm
sure they'll make some cool stuff.
It's an amazing product.
For sure. Getting something up in like a day is amazing, as opposed to like, gotta code up our back end and our auth. All this stuff. Even if you use a solution like Auth0, I feel like it's not quite as nice as if you buy into Firebase and you can use the Firebase auth. So, but
that is a key takeaway. I mean, it's kind of like back in the day, like many years ago, I was a CTO for a company. Like we bought like a $150,000 SAN, right, storage area network. And once you buy into whatever, whether it's Dell or there's like 20 other providers out there.
That's some very sticky sunk cost.
You're in. Like they got you. Like the escape hatch is so expensive. Like you just never out. And to some extent, I don't know if that's necessarily totally true, but I think some truth is there with Firebase. I mean, once you start building an entire app or whatever around all of this, like to lift and shift from auth to Auth0 and go from Firestore to GraphQL or something, or Postgres or whatever it is that you're going to do. Like
this is where you use the adapter pattern.
The adapter pattern, yeah.
Because we use that so much in front end.
Of course,
but we should. In some ways, I think we should. So that we don't get boxed into like getting stuck with one technology.
Specific tech.
Yeah.
I mean, because in theory, Firestore is just objects. So if you're using GraphQL or something, it's all the same, right? You're just working with models. So this is, I don't know, if Brandon's watching, this is where I'd get in trouble, because I'd be like, this is like a facade slash adapter. They're kind of the same thing, right? Just maybe a little 15 degrees off from each other. So similar pattern, facade just sits in front of whatever, whereas an adapter is meant so you can basically have almost like an abstract class with multiple implementations, right? Or then you could just swap out whatever implementation you want. So
well, just kind of like if you have that, like just speaking in Angular terms, if you had some service out there, like it doesn't kind of matter what's behind it. Like the implementations is just kind of obfuscated. It could be NGRX, it could be Firebase, it could be Firebase 2 NGRX, it could be anything. So
yeah, I mean, all your concern is it returns an observable of users or whatever it is that you're getting back, and you go from there. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Sweet, man. Let's go back to just us, and I wanted to go into one of the things I love doing with the guests I get to have on the show is just talk about their journeys through tech, because I find that always interesting. Like,
yeah, sure.
What got you into the business? What are you passionate about? That kind of stuff. I don't know if you want to go on a little rant or something like that, but
sure.
I'll turn the mic over to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think everybody's got different stories, which is why probably it's so fun having guests on the show and hearing about their experience and their kind of how they get into tech or whatever. My story is one that maybe you've heard before, which is basically like, you know, long time developer, right? So, so I started I know this sounds like super cheesy, but I actually started coding JavaScript when I was 12 years old. Nice. So I had a laptop that I begged and begged and begged and begged and begged and begged because laptops were like, you know, super expensive and like whatever. So this would have been 1995. And so, you know, I was doing some stuff. I was pretty active in Boy Scouts when I was a kid. I really loved like the outdoors and hiking and camping and everything. Nice. And so like we wanted to have like a web page for our troop, right? Or whatever it was with like upcoming events and like, don't forget to bring this or whatever it is that you need to bring, you know, $20 in your backpack or whatever. And so I was like, oh, I'll make a website. Yay, I'll do it. So I started just like knocking out like HTML, JS, and CSS and like, boom. But I will say, like, you know, the first 6 months, I don't think I wrote any JavaScript. It was like, there were these websites. I don't even know if they exist, but back in the day, you could like search for like JavaScript snippets, right? Yeah. Of just like, I had no idea what the code did. I would just grab it and like shove it in my page and be like, that kind of worked, I think.
Yeah.
No idea what it is.
My wife would still talk about like back in the old days of, well, what was that social media network before Facebook? Gosh. Oh my gosh. But you know, you would do the same thing. You'd pull like some random code. It would be like, oh, now you can have this like your best friends or something like that, or sparkles on the screen. So oh man,
yeah.
It's bothering me.
I was doing stuff on like GeoCities because they'd give you like a free page or something. And like, cause I didn't have any money, you know what I mean? I didn't have a credit card. I couldn't sign up for anything. So, yeah. So that was kind of how I got started. I just thought it was, you know, what I really like about web development, whether I was when I was 12 or even today, is like, I love just like building something and watching it come together. Like even like the project that I was talking about earlier, the lookout.dev, it's just fun. Like it's fun just like putting pixels on the screen, moving them around and shading them and designing. And it's creative, but also like challenging, but also fun.
My mom came in
MySpace.
That is actually
Zach's
my mom.
Brings it hard.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, I remember MySpace.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So
where everybody was friends with Jack, right? Like the guy who started it. It was like your first friend when you signed into MySpace.
Yeah. Looks like Mom and Dad are watching right now.
Nice.
That's cool.
Hey, Mom. So go ahead.
No, I was just saying my wife loved doing that stuff. And it's weird now to see you know, just those relevant skills. Like sometimes we talk about that stuff. She actually, so Summer, my wife actually used to be a QA engineer at the company I used to work at. And so
cool.
That was like some really good times, I think, in our relationship too, just being able to have that to share, because she would often test my code. And we got just like fully invested in the same stuff. And I made the joke before on the stream. I don't know if you've heard it yet, Brian, but we finally, when we got her the job, we said we finally found a way for her to make money doing the thing she does best, which is pointing out all of my mistakes. So that was fun.
That's funny. That's nice.
Yeah. And thanks, Jacob. my mom's super supportive. So yeah. And dad is awesome too, I guess, if he's watching too.
That's awesome.
But yeah, sorry to interrupt you. So you're 12 years old now. You built the thing for your Cub Scout group, or your Boy Scout group, sorry. And you're like grabbing snippets. So
yeah.
how does that young 12-year-old Brian Love become the Brian Love we know and love today?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll speed through it quickly, so not to bore everybody, but basically, for the most part, and this was my experience again, of course, but you know, I went to high school, I took every computer class that I could, you know, that was great, but like nobody would hire me as a developer. Like I'd get like one-offs, you know, and they'd pay me like, I mean, even back then, I guess it was like $10 an hour, which was good money for like, I didn't have a certification or a degree or anything, you know, and I'd make some, you know, WordPress site or a plugin or whatever. And so, I mean, you had to back in the day, again, my experience, I basically knew I got to go to college in order to be an actual developer. Right. So, hey, Eli. Yeah. So this would have been, you know, 2001. I'm basically like, I mean, you can call it gatekeeping if you will, but back in the day, you couldn't get like back 19 years ago, you couldn't get a job being an engineer unless you had a degree. I mean, even I think Google back then had a policy. They didn't hire anybody in an engineering role unless you had a computer science degree or equivalent or related. And so I knew that this was basically, all right, I kind of know how to program, but I should probably go learn like the real fundamentals. You know, I was basically like hacking my way through things, if you will. Yeah. And so I went to a state school in New York State, and got a degree. And I actually started in computer science, but then I wanted to kind of mix in some business. And so I got a degree in computer information systems. Gotcha. And then from there, I actually went on and got an MBA, so a master's degree in business administration and technology management. Because I kind of knew, I was like, I love the business side, I love the tech side. I think this is kind of a cool marriage, if you will, of these things. And I think it'll be really great going forward. And so my first opportunity into actually like somewhat full-time paid programming was for my capstone in my undergrad. I did your capstone, for if people are like, what's a capstone? It's like your final project or whatever. It's like your last freaking hurdle before after you're paying, you know, $100,000 to give you a little piece of paper that you put on the wall. Yeah. So I got through this capstone class, and you know, I met some
systems, or was this for the MBA?
This is for my undergrad. Yeah. So this is for my undergrad capstone. And I met some really great guys, and they were actually working at another college down the road, a private college, and they had an internship opportunity. And so I was like, awesome. All right, perfect. So I know it's so hard today. I don't even know what it's like, honestly, because my experience is different than what other people's might be. But like cracking the nut of technology, of going from a boot camp or self-taught to actually getting a full-time job or something can be so difficult. And the way I did that was basically through this internship. So for 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week, I don't know, they capped me. I couldn't work more than a certain amount. And it was a paid internship. So it was great. So I was in college, you know, could buy a couple beers or, you know, whatever. And so, so I started interning at this private university called Hamilton College in upstate New York, and worked in their web services department. So did that. And then from there, I was an intern for about a year or so. They hired me, gave me a full-time opportunity. I was there for a couple years, and then worked for another company doing some online education stuff. Started with them as like a director of technology, and then worked my way up to CTO. And then, yeah, I think, you know, again, that MBA kind of helped to be able to kind of bridge the business with the tech and the strategy and stuff. So did that for a while, and then moved out to Colorado for Eli. Eli's Coloradan. And so moved out to Colorado, and ran into a guy named Jesse Sanders, who you may have heard of, who's the CEO for Breebug, which is an Angular consulting company.
Right.
I think at the time when I met Jesse, like Angular 2 was like just out or something like this. It was just like, you know, all the meetups. I think I actually, you know, we got introduced on LinkedIn, but I had gone to a couple of like Rocky Mountain Angular meetups, and you know, all the talks were Angular 2 routing, Angular 2 templating, Angular 2, you know, and I was doing Angular JS, and I was like, yeah, I want to learn this new Angular 2 thing. So kind of got into it.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Some interesting parallels, I think, between your story and kind of my experience. So I when I went through college the first time around, I actually got a degree in theology.
Okay.
Which was a bit, I'm not sure exactly what I was thinking. My dad's a philosophy professor. So I kind of wanted to go down that path, but I also was like exploring getting into being a pastor or something like that. And cool. After I got my degree, I ended up being a youth pastor for a couple of years, and I just did that for free. And
it's got to be such a fun but challenging job.
It was kind of fun. I kind of like that. There's a lot of like leadership stuff and executive stuff you learn from that, even if you're I was getting paid anything. But it gave me like the perfect thing to like explore. That's what I want to do. I found out pretty soon, no, that's not what I want to do. But
you want to take kids up to camp every week for the summer for a week. No. And
I had one like I don't know, like a generation maybe of kids that I was with for a couple of years, and
nice.
Had a really good time with them. But after they kind of moved on to college, I was like, yeah, maybe time to hang up the cape. But while I was doing that, I was working as a mail manager for this financial company. So I was just like managing their mailroom, and ended up making like really good friends with people in the business intelligence department. And I was just like, the stuff you do sounds pretty cool. Let me see if I can get my hands into this. So I bought some beers for some people, and they taught me Python, and started doing some scripts for them. And it was like looking into like, hey, I'm doing the stuff these guys do. Maybe I could get a job doing this. I've got I have a degree. It's not very relevant, but I happened to talk to like one of the heads of tech there, and he really encouraged me to go back to school and get a job, or to get a degree rather. Rather than just getting the job. And I thought that was good advice at the time. Like this was, I don't know, this must have been like 2005, 2006.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah.
So did you go back to your alma mater, or did you go to another school, or what did you end up doing?
I went to another school. So me and my wife who is now my wife, met online, and we'd been like dating long distance for a couple of years. And when we decided to, make it real, I started looking around in places by where she lives. So she was in South Carolina. So I started out just going to like the local tech school, just did some courses there and tried to establish residency. So after a year, I could then go to a state college for in-state tuition.
Right. Yeah, get the discount. That's smart.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I did. And so I ended up going to Clemson University, which had really good program, I think.
Is Clemson, are they the Tigers? What is their mascot? Yeah,
Tigers.
Yeah. I can see the orange like paw print logo.
Yeah.
You got a mug with your all that.
There you go.
Nice.
So yeah. I wear that to mock Wes because he's a Seminoles fan. But yeah,
gotcha.
It was it was a really good time in there. I felt like I learned a whole lot. I was kind of frustrated by some of the courses I had to end up taking. I already had the degree, so I figured, okay, I could just do all computer science courses. And it's like, no, you have to do geology. I don't know why, but you got to do geology. And so I remember doing like this geology lab, and for some of the lab, you had to like lick the rock to see if it was salty or not. And I remember being like, I'm here.
Is that what they do in schools in the South?
I guess so.
Lick the rock.
We all had I was just talking with my friend about this, but it felt like this cruel joke, like some hazing ritual. We had a rock set that we carried around with us for a geology lab.
Oh my gosh.
And so we licked our own rocks. It was like we were sharing rocks and licking them. But
That's a good thing.
It was a legitimate thing. Like I remember having to take this quiz and being like, I'm an old man. I wasn't that old, but I had kids kind of at the time, and it's like I was sitting there at 8 p.m. doing my geology lab, looking rocks. I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Like, is this what are they making of my life?
I made a wrong turn somewhere.
It's interesting, you know, I've had some discussions, you know, like post college with family, or like, because there's a lot of different options today, which I personally think is wonderful. Like there's boot camps, there's, you know, trade schools, there's all these other different options to get into whatever career it is, or tech or math, science. And, you know, I don't know, like I guess there's pros and cons to like the humanities, if you will, of like, I had to like take the languages, I had to take the art classes, the science.
I had to lick a rock.
You know, you had to lick a rock. But I don't know, maybe to some extent it forms who you are today. I don't know how, but that's what they tell us, right? That's what you're paying for.
There we go.
It's that well-rounded education that they're selling.
Yeah. There you go. No, I think so. One of my boys in particular, I think is very interested in computer science. I think he'll make a very good engineer. So I will be advising him not to go to college if he can swing it, because he's very much a self-starter, I feel like. So I feel like if he could get into a situation where he could have 4 years of legitimate experience, I feel like that would be just as good as a college education without having the bills that come with it, especially.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, like certainly I think, you know, for myself, I've got, I don't even know now, 16 years professional experience.
Yeah.
Like if I were to go apply for a job, I'm pretty sure they're going to be like, well, what was your, you know, how did you do in your classes in computer science school, you know, 15 years ago? Like it's irrelevant at this point, right? Your experience certainly speaks for itself. So, but I think there's pros and cons, but I am thankful for my experience, because I think it gave me a good foundational understanding of computer science. Now, some of the stuff I absolutely hated, like memory management and C and stuff. It was just like,
you didn't like malloking and like managing all that yourself. Ugh. What about pass by reference versus pass by value?
Yep.
Get those double pointers in.
That's right. You got it. Man, like I mean, you know, and I don't know if it was just a program that I went to or the year, because it was so long ago, but in order to teach you programming, I know I'm going on a little tangent here, but like they wanted to teach you like instead of object-oriented programming, like it's not functional. I'm trying to think of like just straight, like top to bottom programming, like, right. So they actually made us learn COBOL for a year.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. Wow. It sucked.
So we had C and we had Objective-C that felt a little obtuse, but and then we went to C#, and then we did like some Java and stuff like that. But
yeah, so they basically they made you start with like pseudocode even. Like, I mean, I had like a little ruler where you'd like draw the like angles and stuff on like graph paper. This is old school.
Oh, yeah.
Like pseudo programming, and then COBOL, and like, you know, very, very, you know, foundational principles. And then they get you into OOP. And then from there, you basically could choose. They had like two paths. It was either C++ or Java. And so I went down the C++ train for whatever reason. And I have not written a line of C since college. And if you showed me C++, I'd probably like have nightmares and be like, no, don't take it away.
No, I was very much the same. I actually had a friend from the same college who we ended up working together for a while. But like he wrote a whole game engine in C, which is one of the things you do with C if you're going to use C. But so it was kind of cool messing around with that stuff, but felt like kind of being a glutton for punishment a little bit.
I mean, to be fair, like it totally has its place. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's still a crap load of C that's being written today, you know, whether it's even like, you know, amazing companies like SpaceX, or they hire C++ engineers. You know what I mean? A lot of the shuttle, you know, was, you know, this code is all written in C, you know, and so it's like, it absolutely has its place. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I really enjoyed, you know, JavaScript and, you know, and backend. You know, I did a lot of PHP and Java and stuff like that too. And so, I think JavaScript is just like it's a fun language, and then with Node and everything, it's like just really, you can do a lot with it. Super powerful.
Absolutely. Well, like we had Addy on the show yesterday, and his big thing was always bet on JavaScript, and feels like solid advice. As soon as I don't know if you encountered this when you first encountered JavaScript, Brian. Oh, I guess you did when you were 12. But when I did touch JavaScript. Thanks for stopping by, Jacob. Catch you next time. But yeah, when I first encountered JavaScript from like being in Java and stuff like that, I was started with Angular 2 when it first dropped, 2016. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, yes, this is where I want to be, and I don't want to go back. Like there's something about that. I was just like, okay, this is what I'm going to put my go all in on. So did you have this feeling of that when you came back to JavaScript ever, or not so much?
I don't know. I mean, for much of my career, like I don't even know when the term full stack came out, because like you were just a web developer back then. I mean, like you wrote backend, you wrote HTML or whatever, Pug or whatever templating language you wanted to use. You wrote JS, you wrote Rails, you wrote Ruby. I mean, you just did it, right? And then there started to become the separation, at least in my mind. Like I was kind of seeing this, and I'm like, the client is increasingly becoming more and more powerful. And I think back-end development is certainly like here to stay. But even like the thing I showed you earlier on the stream, like that app, lookout.dev, like it's just Firebase on the back end. Yeah. I didn't write any, I've got some cloud functions in Node, right? But I'm not writing any sort of, back end logic. And so I think that's pretty powerful that we can write full applications in JavaScript without having to really worry about some of these other things. Because frankly, like, dude, I've written so much SQL in my life. Like, if I don't have to write SQL again, I'm not going to like be upset or sad. Like inner join, left join, outer join, right join, sub queries. I've written like SQL TSQL with like 100, 200 lines of TSQL, and it's just like, if I don't have to do that, I'm not going to complain.
So, I don't know, man. There's something about like the SQL knowledge I had. I feel like I don't use it that much anymore. Just
me neither.
End up using like Mongo or Firebase or some solution like that for data. But yeah, it almost feels like a shame. Like I invested all this stuff into it, and like I felt like I was pretty good at constructing a SQL schema, and it's kind of a shame to throw it all away now. But hey, you can take the same
back around. I think that's true, but I do think the pendulum kind of swings in technology, right? And so, we had these like highly structured, highly rigid applications of the past, right? And even still today, there's probably billions of dollars being made off of these applications, whether line of business or whatever. And then we kind of had this like, no, I'm going the other way with like no SQL and documents and collections and like I'm not going to structure my data. I don't care about the structure of the data. So I think we'll probably end up kind of swinging around back again. I bet you'll write some SQL again. Don't you worry.
Yeah, probably. I've been looking into Datomic actually recently. I've been on like a Rich Hickey kick. He's the guy that did who built Clojure, who made Clojure. Okay, it's got some really, really interesting talks. I don't know if you've ever heard him speak before.
No, it's called Datomic? Datomic,
yeah. So it's like the way he talks about it, it's almost like if you crossed a database with like a Git kind of implementation, like source control. So you could be able to see like at this time on Friday, what was the state of the database? So it's one of those things that's kind of like, well, obviously we should be able to do that. Why can't we do that?
Right.
So very interesting stuff. My favorite talk of his is Easy Made Simple, which is something that kind of changed the way I think about a lot of stuff, just in terms of difficulty versus complexity and how that comes to code, but like also how that kind of comes to just everyday life. So I don't know.
That's cool. I'll have to check it out. Shoot me a link if you remember.
Let me pull it up.
DM it or tweet it. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to check out this Datomic. It almost kind of sounds like, because you've got this, like, there's acid versus base. And I wonder, like, this is like some sort of like Venn diagram of the two, almost like some sort of middle transactional, but with flexible data model. So that's cool.
Yeah. It's really neat. I need to get into it a bit more before I can speak about it comprehensively, but it definitely looked really cool from just looking at it.
Nice.
But yeah. Brian, another thing I'd love to hear from you too is sort of your journey becoming like a GDE and just like speaking and content creation and the stuff that go along with that. I know for me, like I said before, like starting out in Angular, I always look for your stuff because you had great stuff. Is that something you had always done throughout your career? Like the idea of the garden, was that something you've been doing a lot, or was that a more recent occurrence?
In all honesty, I kind of went through, and I don't know, maybe other people can relate to this, but it's almost like the sine wave of like where I've been like deeply invested in a community or technology. And then other times, maybe you just need to take a little bit of break and focus on yourself, your family, or whatever it is, where life just comes at you. So when I first got into like, professional development, so this would have been around like 2005, 2006. I actually was part of like a local meetup. So I was living in a city called Syracuse, New York. You may have heard of the college because they're a basketball. When we say we're pretty good at basketball, I don't know how they're doing these days. But anyways,
they beat Clemson a couple years back in football. So
did they? Okay, there you go. Well, sorry to hear that. Sorry for your loss. So I was living in Syracuse, and so I actually got involved in some like local meetups and stuff. And I did speak, did a bunch of speaking, and actually became like a co-organizer for a meetup. And honestly, I got kind of burnt out, and I wonder if other people would like relate to this, because getting other people to being a meetup organizer is both extremely rewarding, but also extremely challenging, especially if you don't have like a company behind it or a big sponsor or something like that, And so, we had a couple sponsors and people gave us some space and everything. I think there was at one point where I spoke like 6 months in a row because nobody else would. So like every month, like I was speaking, and eventually I was just like, I'm not going to do this anymore, So I think I definitely got started real early, and like being involved with community for several years was pretty like into it. And then after that, I think I just kind of stepped away a little bit and said, I got a little burnout or whatever. And then kind of the road back towards like, your original question with like becoming a Google developer expert and stuff. Really, that's where now the story advances to like moving to Denver and stuff and getting involved with the Rocky Mountain Angular meetup. I was doing, and I appreciate the kind words about the blog. I've been blogging for about 10 years now, and have been fairly consistent, but not so much in the last year. But anyways, I was doing a lot of learning on, because Angular 2, this was like, so 2015, 2016, Angular 2 was still like release candidate, 29 or whatever they went through. I don't remember. I'm joking.
I think they went to 1.0 in September of 2016. And that's like right when I got my hands on it. So,
yeah. And so, I was kind of right at that, beta and RC stage, and then going into final for Angular 2. And so I was just like really enjoying it, doing a lot of writing about it, and had some small contracts on the side, doing some stuff. And so that's when I was like, yeah, I'm going to get back into speaking. This is really cool. It was exciting. Honestly, like I remember, I don't know what your experience was, but like there's a lot of excitement around like the Angular 2 launch, and going from Angular JS to Angular 2, as I mean, you're on a client now, like doing an Angular JS migration, right? To Angular 2.
It's still going.
the forever migration. And so, I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, certainly it's a big shift, right? And I had done some other frameworks, for, you know, at the time, maybe poked around with React and stuff. But having already, you know, things written in Angular, like I was like, oh, let's get into this. And so that's when I really started diving into all things Angular. At the time, we called it Angular 2, right? Because we didn't just call it Angular versus Angular JS. Everybody just called it Angular 2. But really, it's a completely new framework, as we know. And so it was super fun. Like TypeScript was new to me. And like, I mean, back in the day with like typings files and like all of this stuff, you know, it's just like, it was fun and challenging and exciting. And so I just started doing a crap load of like blogging about it. And then started getting involved in the local meetup, did a bunch of speaking, ended up getting a full-time job and working with Jesse at Prebug for a year and a half. And it was a lot of fun. It was really cool. And so as a part of that, you know, certainly if you ask anybody, like, how do you become a GDE? It's just like, well, you just do the things that GDEs do, right? You blog, you write, you teach, you speak, you mentor. And so I was kind of doing all of those things. And I think like Jesse, you know, I was working full-time for Jesse and he became a GDE, so Google Developer Expert in Angular. And, you know, he's like, we're going to get you to be a GDE. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'm ready, you know? And I think like we were hanging out one night and I think he kind of knew that I had this blog and stuff. And we were hanging out and, you know, he was, I don't remember exactly, but it was something like I kind of told him like what kind of traction I was having on my blog. And he was like, oh, you should apply to be a GDE. So I think at the time I was getting about 75,000 unique visits a month.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I'd already done, you know, all this speaking. I think at the time, like when I did my interview with Stephen Fluen, like I had not spoken at NGConf yet, or like really any major conference in Angular, but I was doing a lot of the local meetup. You know, I was kind of one of the co-organizers for the Rocky Mountain Angular meetup. Though the company Prebug they do a lot of the organizing internally, and so that's kind of how it happened. So in order to become a GDE, you need like an invite, basically like a recommendation from another GDE. And so Jesse was like, I think you should do this. So I did, and went through that process and made it through, I guess, if you will. Nice. And it's been really great. It's a great community of people. I've learned a lot from them over the years, both personally and professionally. And it's a really awesome group to be a part of. So
very cool. I've had the pleasure of talking to several GDEs in Angular and web technologies, and always cool to hear the story and to just hear about their experiences. It's kind of like sort of a stamp of approval. Yeah, like just seeing, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. So,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's not a certification. It's not a test, you know. Like I've had people ask me, you know, they're like, where do I sign up for this? I'm like, oh, you don't really sign up for it, you know. Yeah. You just do it. You just get out there and speak and organize and go to meetups and write blog articles, contribute to open source, stream on Twitch, you know. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. We're doing it.
We're doing it.
We're doing it. Look, Ma.
Look, Ma. That's awesome. Especially because Ma is, I don't know if she's still watching. Maybe she tuned out at this point, but it's so cool that she's tunes into your stream, man.
Yeah. Awesome. So she was here for a month. We just had our another baby. So she was here helping for a while there. Oh, there's Mom. She's still listening.
Yeah.
But she just went back home to Dad a couple of weeks ago. So she's missed, but she used to always like sit in the other room and watch on her phone. So maybe she's doing that now in Connecticut.
Nice.
But yeah, it's
that's
super
so cool.
Has anything changed for you with COVID? Do you feel like? I feel like probably. Hate to end on a bad note, but
Has anything changed in terms of COVID? I mean, obviously, like speaking engagements, you know, with no live in-person events. I mean,
Yeah.
I was supposed to do a 2-day workshop. I mean, I still did the workshop and still spoke at NGConf, but, you know, that was all remote, as we know, in what, April, I guess that was. It was right after, that was right when all the crazy stuff was hitting, right?
Yeah.
And then, I guess maybe to some extent, you know, there's pros and cons maybe perhaps, but like being able to not go to in-person events like sucks. I think we can all agree. Like some virtual conferences have done an okay job, I think. You know, Cascaded JS did a really cool thing, and I think Enterprise NG is going to do this. There's a product called Remo. That's kind of a neat way to have like a hallway track, and it's not the same. It's never going to be the same. We know this. But at least then you can meet other people and stuff. So the speaking engagements certainly have changed. I mean, I was supposed to go, a buddy of mine, Lucas Rubelkey, who's also a GDE. We were supposed to go in June. Me and him were going to go to Paris and do like a 4 or 5 day, like Angular, like AWS, all this huge, like train this company. And of course that fell through, which sucks because we both were going to like bring our families and like go to Paris and like basically get paid to go travel. And then NG Rome was obviously online. Would have loved to have gone to Rome, you know. But again, I'm thankful at the same time. Like I was still able to speak for NG Rome, and Leo Zathamia did a great job organizing the conference. And so certainly things have changed, you know, in my day-to-day life and also just like work and stuff. You know, it's been, you know, working from home.
You're in Portland, right? That's
right.
It seems like some crazy stuff was happening there. And did you feel like you were affected by that at all?
No. So, I mean, just in terms of yes and no, I think I was affected in terms of I've learned a lot by listening to people and going, okay, this is something that's my life experience is vastly different from other people's life experience, in large part because of the color of their skin. So I've learned a lot in Portland, but I wasn't negatively impacted in any sort of way with, I actually I'm not downtown. I'm like across the Portland basically has like a river that cuts the city, like it runs north south for the most part, called the Willamette. And so I'm on the other side of the river from downtown, but some of the protests would actually go right by my building and stuff, which was pretty cool to watch and be a part of. And that was, of course, I don't know how much you followed what was happening here in Portland, but 99% of these protests were incredibly peaceful. And then, you know, at whatever time, you know, midnight, 1 a.m. is when people would get kind of out of hand, and you know, off goes the tear gas and all that other stuff. So, it was pretty beautiful watching just the people that were participating with the protests and stuff. But unfortunately, you know, some people wanted to get violent, and
the interesting thing I heard about Portland was there was like, what was it, Chad and Chop, like was it like a sovereign state or something that was being set up in the middle of all this?
Oh, that was Seattle. Yeah, Seattle had a chop zone or something where they had basically like taken over a precinct or something. And,
okay. I thought that was Portland. My mistake.
No, we're close. Close. So, but Portland is a really cool city. If you ever get a chance to visit, hit me up. But I've been
once before. Me and Jeff were there to give a workshop, so that was fun.
Yeah, really good time. Wonderful city, tons of culture and great people. It's a really fun place to be. A little too much rain, but whatever. You get what you get. So
you get what you get, and you don't pitch a fit.
Nice.
That's what we tell our kids all the time, at least.
You get what you get. You eat those carrots.
Exactly.
But we've only been in Portland for a year, so we're still getting to know the place and meet people, but it's been fun.
Awesome, man. All right, one last burning question.
Sure.
Tacos. Is a taco a sandwich?
Is a taco a sandwich?
Yes.
No, because a sandwich has a top and a bottom. A taco has a
wait. I asked it
beautiful
wrong.
meat.
I asked it wrong. Shoot. I learned this from Aaron. A hot dog. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Is a hot dog
sandwich has a sandwich has a top and a bottom. A hot dog is a shitty taco. If you want to say it's a taco, it's a shitty taco.
Hot dogs are great.
Yes and no. If you like hot dogs, have you ever been to Germany?
I have not. I think we may have like passed through, like we went through the airport, but never actually been outside of an airport in Germany.
My wife and I lived in Munich for 6 months, and if you like hot dogs, those people are your people, because you go to the grocery store, which they're tiny, they're small grocery stores as is, but you go to the grocery store and there's like 25 different types of hot dogs, man. You got your long ones, you get these ones, and they come in jars, and they got like, dude, if you're into hot dogs, you got to go to Germany to get some hot dogs.
Nice. Well, I usually ask just to figure out like the etymology of a hot dog. What is hot dog? You know, my dad's a philosopher, so what class does it belong to?
It's salty tube meat with white bread around the outside of it. So it's like, it's not even a good sandwich or a good taco. Because like a good taco is like a corn tortilla with like some barbacoa and some onions and like, you know, maybe a little drizzle of like a chipotle mayo or something. Like that's a good taco.
Have you eaten already? It seems
no,
like
I'm getting hungry. It's 4:30, and I can see there's a taco place that I go to called Robo Taco. And they have some really good tacos, like, you know, street style, like little $3 tacos. And a sandwich is good too, but a hot dog is like neither sandwich nor taco.
I always describe it as like the platypus of the foods. Like, it is not a sandwich. If you took a hot dog and you sliced it up and you put it between two sandwich breads, I'd say that's a sandwich. Even if you did slice it up, if you put it between two pieces of bread, I'd still say that's a sandwich.
I agree.
The moment you put it in a hot dog bun, it's something different, and it's not a hoagie either. It's a hot dog. Same way a platypus is neither bird nor mammal. Nor
I see what you're saying now. Yeah. You know, back to my Munich experience. I remember. Yeah. So you know, like we have like ethnicities. You know, like you might have like in your grocery store, you might have like, you know, Thai or Indian. We'll get to your question in a second, Eli. Right? in Munich, in the grocery store we were going to, it's called the Tengelmann. They had like an American section. What do you think was in that? What do you think was in the American section?
I guess like hamburgers.
Yeah. They had like these like packages of like hot dog buns. Okay. For what it's worth, like if you ever live like, especially in a lot of European, like the breads are just amazing. Right. I mean, you don't go to like a grocery store for the breads. You go to the bakery, right? And you get these amazing, just delicious breads. But if you want the most disgusting bread, you go to the American aisle in Germany. They have like the flag all over it. And guess what else they sell? American ketchup and American French's. Like there's like American ketchup. like mustard, you know? Yeah. It's like
hamburgers comes. That's a town in Germany. It's named after the town in Germany, right? But it's become like, I
don't know if it is or not, but I will say this: when I went to Hamburg, I did have a hamburger.
Okay, there you go.
You have to. You got to. Me and all the other American tourists, they as you're coming in, they're like, "Here, go this way. This is where the tourist section is. We got your hamburgers."
There you go. Okay, let's see. If we rolled up a hot dog in a piece of sandwich bread, like to make it like a hot dog bun, I'd think that's
the thing on what's the thing on the stick that's basically a hot dog. A corn dog, isn't that basically what Eli's getting at?
I don't think so. In my family, at least, when you make hot dogs, but you run out of buns, you just grab the one piece and you like fold it around to like make it like a hot dog bun. But to me, that's still a hot dog.
Yeah.
It's just as soon as you put that second piece of bread, a second disjointed piece of bread on top, that's when it becomes a sandwich, I think.
So wait. If you take the hot dog bun and tear it and then put the hot dog between it, is it a sandwich?
Not a sandwich.
Well, wait, it's 2 pieces of bread disconnected with the salty tube meat in the middle.
Salty tube meat. No, because
I call it a salty tube meat because, I mean, how else do you describe it? It's just some sort of meat substance with a bunch of sodium in a tube.
The sodium is the key ingredient.
Of course. If it didn't have sodium in it, you wouldn't eat it.
As long as we got the saltiness in there, we're good. But yeah, like with particularly stale pieces of hot dog buns, I feel like they often tear anyways. So you ended up eating, it's like a failed hot dog at that point. It's neither sandwich nor hot dog nor taco.
I will say though, I'm not a connoisseur of the hot dog genre, but I know that there are like some like hipster places. He's like he's fired up the grill.
We made him hungry.
Nice. Hopefully he can grill. I know it's super cold in Denver right now. They just got some snow. But
my brother's in Denver too, actually. I meant to say that earlier.
Denver is such a great town.
We have not been out there yet. Just with COVID and stuff, we've been like locked down. So
yeah, same here. What I was gonna say though is I think there are like some like trendy hipster like food carts in Portland where they give you like these like hot dogs where it's just got like tons of stuff all over it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just your classic Frenches and ketchup, and so you can really you can elevate the hot dog, I suppose. But if that's
one of my highlights of the trip to Portland was the food carts while we were there. That was really cool.
Do you know which ones you went to?
No.
Was it like downtown?
We were downtown, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of places together. Like there was all the food carts set up on the one street, like on the sidewalk there. That's where we went to. So
yeah. There's, I guess they call them like pods. There's like there's tons of them all over the city, where like people rent out of space, like, you know what I mean, and they put their food cart up there, and it's pretty good stuff. I was a little skeptical at first, but then I was like, I'm impressed. I'm impressed what you can make in 100 square feet of room.
Exactly. Well, like even before getting any food, there was just something about the smell in the air. Come to Denver, we got hot dogs.
We got hot
carts. They got hot dogs in Denver. As soon as I smelled it, I couldn't tell which cart it was coming from, but it was some combination of carts. I was like, okay, this is gonna be good, and it did not disappoint. So.
Yeah, you could get some great like Thai, Indian, Mediterranean, halal. Like, there's some really good food in Portland.
Yeah.
So, and Denver, Eli.
And Denver. They got their hot dogs over there. there's salty meat tubes in hot dogs.
Right.
But awesome, man. Well, Brian, thanks so much for coming on. It was really cool having you on and chatting. Really enjoyed it. So, and it was just cool to meet you after reading all your articles and stuff. So thanks for coming.
Absolutely. And a little plug. So we actually recorded Angular show this morning, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to be, I don't know when the series is going to come out, but we're doing a 4-part series for the Angular show on RxJS. And so we had Jan Nicholas Vertman on to do the creation operators. And then we had Laura Newsom and yourself on. We did our recording this morning. So it was really fun having you on the show. And I'm looking forward to getting that full series out. And I think people are going to really enjoy it. So
thanks, man. It was a real treat. It was a real treat to be on that show too. So thanks.
It's fun. One of the things I like about it, and probably similar for you with like Twitch, is like learning these things. Like, for example, the window operator. Like, who knew that RxJS had a window operator? It's like, oh shit, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. And if you're watching, it's not what you think.
It's not, but we won't give it away. There's no spoilers here. You got to tune in to your show.
Yeah,
it probably will come out in a couple of weeks to a month. I bet by the time we get it all done and said. So,
very cool, man. Very cool. Well, tomorrow on the show we'll have Mike Brocky come by. He's also working with us at Capital One right now. So, and also a Hero Dev guy with Aaron. So, looking forward to having a good chat with him. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. And Thank you again, Brian. You rock.
Yeah. See ya.
Be all.